Hey, what up guys? Welcome back to Life on the Wrist. Hope you guys are doing well today. It is that time of the year. The GPHG nominations have been released and holy cow, are there some amazing watches that have been nominated. This year there's been a really great sort of push by brands to innovate, and I think they did a really good job sort of coming out of the pandemic and releasing some really interesting watches for those of us who are interested in them. It's very, very difficult to sort of parse out what you would actually pick for each of these categories. But as I do every year, I'll go through some the categories and let you know which one I would personally pick if I was on the panel. I'll skip some of them just because I don't have an opinion on some of the categories. And also just for you, I don't want to make this a super boring video. So yeah, I'm going to go through each of the categories that there are for GPHG and tell you what I would pick. If you don't know, GPHG is basically like the Oscars of watchmaking. Every year, watches are nominated to receive an award for basically a specific category, and you know, there's a panel of judges who are able to interact with the watches and figure out what they would end up picking. So I'm going to go through each of the categories just in order. So the first category is ladies. I was going to skip this one, but I actually think I would either, there's some really great watches, Armstrong, Beauvais. I'll put up a picture so you can see all the nominations. I personally would either go with the Armstrong just because I think it is a little bit more unisex. I don't really like the ladies and men's category. It feels like it's a little bit too divided, but there are watches that are for ladies. I'd either go for the Armstrong Lady Beat Manufacturer Edition in white, or I'd go for the Piaget Limelight Gala Precious Rainbow. I think this is a really beautifully elegant watch from Piaget, and I really like the rainbow that you can see on the outside of the case. But this was a category I really didn't have an opinion on too deeply. The next category is ladies complication. This is a complicated ladies piece. There were some really beautiful pieces here. I personally think the Piaget Altiplano Tourbillon is one of the most beautiful complicated pieces that was released in the ladies category this year. Honorable mention to the Beauvais. I think the Astronomy piece is really beautiful on this. But for Piaget, I just think this is a really elegantly done tourbillon case. It's also an extremely thin piece, 7.35 millimeters, so very thin. So it's like, to me, it's like the perfect dress watch. I really like the diamonds around the outside, subtly done, kind of integrate nicely with the overall look of this. It's also, when you have a night sky on your dial, it also helps make that a very easy watch to sort of fall in love with. The hours and minutes hands are subtly done sort of towards 8 o'clock, which I think is nice and keeps it sort of more in the dressier light of things. Moving on to the men's category. I literally didn't know what to pick for this one. This is such a difficult category for me. I was able to narrow it down to 4 pieces of these, but you can see that there are just some absolutely phenomenal pieces that were released. The H. Moser Final Upgrade, the Piaget Polo Skeleton, the MB&F LM1 Double Hairspring, the Grand Seiko High Beat, 80 hours. This was so hard. But I had to pick something. If I went with my heart, I'd go with MB&F because I love the brand. But if I went with my, you know, if I go with my gut, I think what I would vote for is the H. Moser Swiss Alp Watch Final Upgrade. I think this is a very significant piece in the journey of watches. It's acknowledging that smart watches are a big part of what's going forward. And it plays into that with that sort of loading screen on the dial of this watch. It's completely, the amount of time and effort that's taken into creating this piece is absolutely phenomenal. When you flip this watch over, the movement is absolutely beautifully constructed and decorated into this sort of Apple Watch case design. So that would be my men's selection. Let me know what you would pick in this, because this is probably the hardest one here. if I was gonna order them, it would be like H. Moser, then I'd probably have the Grand Seiko and MB&F sort of even, maybe the Grand Seiko a little bit higher, than the Piaget Polo S for this category. Moving forward, men's complication, another ridiculously difficult category for me. Great watches, for me, I know how I would sort of parse out what I would take out of this. I've done a video on the Bulgari Octoroma World Timer, so not really to my taste. I'd take that one out. I'd also take the Chanel and Chopard out, just, you know, no specific reason. There is a specific reason. No disrespect to these pieces, they're absolutely phenomenal. The three that I would have to choose between is the Royal Oak Selfwinding Flying Tourbillon, the Breitling B15 Duograph, and then the MB&F LMX. And yeah, this one again was a really difficult one to pick. I think for me, top two, I'd go LMX and Breitling, and I think I would give this one to the Breitling. This is a flyback chronograph that was released by Breitling. I think Breitling has done an incredible job with the watches that they've released this year to gain a certain customer base that's looking for this sort of vintage inspired or vintage design chronograph that they've released. So I think I would give it to the Breitling, but it's like LMX and Breitling are like right here. So I don't really know which one I would give it to. Even thinking about it now, I sort of want to take back the fact that I picked the Breitling and give it to the LMX. So really difficult to decide between those two. Let me know in the comments what you would pick there. Next one, iconic, another ridiculously difficult category. Some absolutely, as the title of this category sort of alludes to, real iconic watches here that they have been released. You've got the Audemars Piguet Jumbo Extra Thin, you've got the IWC, the Grand Seiko, a recreation of the first Grand Seiko, Black Bay 58, the Vacheron Americain, the Zenith Chronograph, revival of the A386. I have no idea what I would pick for this category. I feel like a lot of these watches are in different places, right? So you have the Audemars Piguet and the Tudor Black Bay that are sort of on that sort of dive aesthetic side of things, and you've got the Grand Seiko, which is really sort of classic, that sort of meshes with the Vacheron Americain. Then you've got the IWC Big Pilot, which is sort of, you know, obviously pilot-inspired watch, and you've got this chronograph from Zenith, and I really don't know what I would pick. If I was to pick with my heart, I think I would probably go with the Vacheron. Vacheron is one of my favorite companies. What they create is absolutely incredible, so I'd probably go with that. If I was to go with something that's sort of a revitalization of an iconic watch, which I think this is supposed to sort of focus on, I'd either go with the Grand Seiko or the Zenith. I'd probably go with the Zenith just because I love chronographs. And I think the execution from Zenith was really great to the original styles. But the Grand Seiko is also an incredibly done piece as well, with an incredibly done movement. So another really hard one. The next one, this one is the Tourbillon. And for this one, for me, it was a no-brainer. I would go for the Code 1159 Selfwinding Flying Tourbillon chronograph from Audemars Piguet. They hadn't done this in a very long time. I think it was really well executed, also sort of elevating that 1159 line of watches into complications, which I think is important, and the Tourbillon is just absolutely mesmerizing. Honorable mention to the Debutune, because I do think that the reversing case is a fairly incredible thing for a brand to do. Calendars and astronomy, this is another very difficult one, but I sort of know, for me it was between the IWC and the Breitling. I'd probably give it to the Breitling because I do think that they deserve some sort of recognition for the incredible pieces that they've created here. This is the Datora 42, incredibly done moon phase at 6 o'clock. The proportions of the dial are just phenomenal. Really harkens back to those vintage calendar chronographs that you see, and is a phenomenal piece in my personal opinion. Really captures the minds of sort of those vintage lovers. I do think the Arnold and Son is as they always do, they create these really beautiful pieces that are simplistic but really complicated and really well executed from a design perspective. So another great category there. Mechanical exception. This one was tough because you read about all of the different things that all of these pieces are doing. I'll put a link in the description of this video so you can see all of the nominations and read about what they've actually done. For me, I'm actually going to give this nomination to the Piaget Altiplano Ultimate Automatic. This is the thinnest automatic, the thinnest automatic Swiss watch. It's so thin. It's 4.3 millimeters in thickness. This is a feat that obviously was something that a lot of watch companies competed to be able to say, we create the thinnest watch ever. I think this is a nice sort of revitalization of that sort of battle between watch companies, and really well executed from Piaget in white gold. So for me, it was really the standout. But the Jacob & Co. Opera Godfather Minute Repeater is also an incredible piece as well. And if you're sort of into The Godfather, you know, how can you not like the chiming and musical watch from Jacob & Co. For this one here. All right, Chronograph. This was a difficult one for me. As you know, I love chronographs. There were some beautiful pieces here, but I have to give it to Breitling. Breitling did an incredible job. This pistachio green dial is something that we haven't really seen, or this sort of pistachio, I guess, hue of green is not something we see very often. Green has become a big part of 2021 when it comes to dial colors, but I do think the BA09 chronograph is incredible. But again, all the pieces that are in this this is a difficult thing to pick. And at the end of the day, it's sort of like what I'm sort of interested in. Divers, this one I'm actually going to give to the Ulysses Naudin Diver X Skeleton. I think it's a little bit more of a unique looking watch, not sort of in line with what these brands have created in the past, and brings a new flair to what a diver actually looks like. It's also from Ulysses Naudin, who is been heavily involved in sort of ocean related watches, and I do think they've done an incredible job here. I love the strap, keeps it sporty, keeps it ready to go, so love that. I'm gonna skip the jewelry collection here, and I'm gonna go to the artistic crafts. This one, it's pretty incredible to see the artistic elements that are brought into watchmaking, especially when it comes to dial finishing. And I think for me, there's no really question for me here. I'd give it to the MB&F LMSE Eddie Jacques Around the World in 80 Days sort of collection of watches, but there's many different dials that Eddie Jacques hand finished for the LMSE split escapement. I think it's incredible to, one, elevate someone who's doing incredible things in art, but also sort of elevate the split escapement into something that we haven't seen very often. MB&F keeps their dials fairly, one color, because there's a lot going on with their pieces. I think it would detach from some of the complications that you're able to see on the dial side or what have you. But I do think that the hue of this is very well done and integrates with the watch really nicely. For me, the Vacheron in Duluth Bridge was probably my second favorite, because I think it's another thing where you have a incredibly finished dial for that as well. Moving forward, Petite aiguille. This one to me is a category that I think is a very important part about this. A lot of people criticize GPHG for having only these extremely difficult to get and very expensive pieces part of the awards, and this sort of is trying to bring it down to earth. I'm actually not going to give this one to the Breitling. I'm personally going to give it to the Tudor black base ceramic. Ceramic is a material that's popular in watchmaking, and I think the all black on this is definitely something that's going to capture a lot of people's attentions. I'd also say the Seiko recreation of the King Seiko KSK is probably something that you're saying is, or I would imagine you'd probably have this in your mind as one of the other winners for this award. So between those two, I'd probably say there. And then the challenge line, I'm not really sure what I would give here, so I'm personally going to skip it. I don't know enough about these watches to really speak on them, so I'm not going to do that. So those are the nominations. I hope you guys enjoyed sort of hearing my picks. Let me know what your picks are in the comments for some of these awards. This was a tough year because there were so many incredible watches that I loved, and yeah, definitely a difficult one to pick, but we did it. And what we'll do is once the awards happen, we'll come back and talk through the winners of each of the categories. If you wouldn't mind subscribing to the channel if you are new here and hitting that like button for us, it really does help us out with our YouTube analytics. And with that said, guys, thank you so much for watching this video, and until next time.